Ladies and gentlemen, we meet again towards Parashat Tzav, which is also known as Shabbat Hagadol, the big Shabbat, the great Shabbat. What makes this Shabbat greater or bigger than any other Shabbat? Why Shabbat Hagadol? What is it that makes it Gadol? So there are a few explanations. The simple explanation is that that was the day that the Jewish people in Egypt took a lamb and tied it down to their bed in order to slaughter it for Pesach, which seems like a very simple act. But if you look at it in the context that the Jewish people were a very small and fragile nation of slaves in a big nation, as the Egyptians were big and strong, and the lamb was their god. And we took their lamb and tied it down to the bed in order to slaughter it in a few days. I mean, that is a religious revolution. Just imagine there are over 1 billion Hindus in India, and people would start taking their cows and tying them to the bed and saying, we're going to slaughter these cows. It would be an upheaval. It would be terrible. This is a real religious revolution, and that's how it all started. So, and therefore, the fact that first of all, the Jews had the courage to do it, and the second of all, the fact that the Egyptians didn't attack us, that is a big ness, that is a big miracle, and therefore it's called Shabbat Hagadol. That's what's brought down the Shulchan Aruch and in the commentaries. I would like to visit this time a few ideas from the Hasidic world, from Hasidic masters who really took this in very interesting directions. First of all, I'd like to speak about the Sfat Emet. Sfat Emet was one of the greatest Hasidic masters in Poland 150 years ago. He was the second Admor of Gur, and he had this amazing idea, which is, what is the big promise, the big view, the big vision of Am Yisrael that was given to Abraham in the very beginning? And what is the vision? Ve'escha legoy gadol. I will make you a great nation. This is the first time Am Yisrael as a nation are doing a mitzvah. This is a mitzvah that takes great courage and great guts, like Abraham Avinu had. And therefore, this is the first time we are seen as we can start seeing that Abraham's promise to a great nation is starting to come true. That is an amazing thing. And that is one idea. Second idea he brings up, the Sfat Emet, has got to do with Shabbat itself. We have to understand, until that day, that Shabbat was always Zecher L'Maaseh Breshit, was to remind us of the creation of the world. It's an act of keeping Shabbat is an act of emunah to remind us of the creation of the world. But since that Shabbat had a new definition. It also became Zecher L'Yetziat Mitzrayim. In Kiddush, we say it's Zecher. Shabbos is Zecher L'Yetziat Mitzrayim, to remind us of the exodus from Egypt. Why is that? Because it's only Shabbat that really makes us understand what it doesn't mean freedom from slavery. On Shabbat, we are out of the rat race. We're not running after our mobile phones, and we're not running after our work, and we're not running anywhere. We're just there to do what independent, free people who have got a free spirit really do, which is enjoy the family, enjoy the community, sleep a bit more, eat a bit more, pray a bit more, learn a bit more Torah, just to show that you're spiritually independent. Be with your family, be with the community, and hands off any other issues that have got to do with the rat race of life. And that is really an expression, when Shabbat comes in, we all feel a certain moment of exodus from Egypt. It is Zecher L'Yetziat Mitzrayim, and therefore, why is it Shabbat Hagadol? Because the Shabbat itself was upgraded. It was upgraded from being simply Zecher L'Maaseh Bereshit, to remind us of the creation of the world, to be Also, Zecher Letziat Mitzrayim, to remind us of what it means to leave slavery. That's the second idea. The third idea I'd like to share with you is from a different Hasidic master, known as Reb Tzadok HaKohen Rubinstein from Lublin, also approximately 150 years ago, who was close to the Ishbitza and to Chabad, and he gives it a very interesting point. We say in Lecha Dodi, we say, Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor habracha. We have to go towards Shabbat because Shabbat is the source of our blessing in life. Why is it the source of our blessing? Because when God created the world, God created holiness only in one place. There was no mountain, no man, no book, no fountain that was holy. There's only one thing which is holy. Vayivarech Hashem, Yom HaShvi'i vayikadesh oto. The only thing that is kadosh is Shabbat. And therefore Shabbat is the source of holiness. It's the source of blessing. And therefore there are two ways of looking at Shabbat. One way of looking at Shabbat is we call it Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, and we number the days until Yom HaShvi. We count up till Shabbat. Why? He says because spiritually, a very high idea, that spiritually, all the good deeds we do during the week, whether it is chesed, whether it is davening, whether it is Torah, whether it's tzedakah, any type of mitzvahs we do, is accumulating on top of our neshama, but it's not going into our neshama. Only once we get the Shabbos and we get the Shema Yatayah, all the mitzvahs that we did during the week, the spiritual value of all the mitzvahs we did during the week, filter in to our neshama. But until then, they don't filter into our neshama. So actually, Shabbat summarizes all the positive activities we did the whole week. That's one way of looking at it. But there's a second way of looking at it, which is Shabbat is the source of the power, the spiritual power of the whole future week. And therefore in Shabbat has the potential, has the spiritual potential for everything we're going to do in the future week to come. And since the future week to come has Pesach in it, and Pesach is such a great event, so the spiritual power of Pesach already goes into our neshama on this Shabbat. And therefore it's Shabbat Hagadol. It's a great Shabbat because we already get the spiritual potential power to go into Pesach with. So there are actually three ideas I shared with you just now, whether it is from Hagadol, Shabbat Hagadol, because Ve'escha Legoy Gadol, from Avraham Avinu, we as a nation doing a great deed of spiritual courage against the Egyptians and the Egyptian God, whether it is accepting that Shabbat is being upgraded because it's not only Zecher L'Yetziat Mitzrayim, it's Zecher L'Maaseh Bereshit, it's also Zecher L'Yetziat Mitzrayim. And the third idea is because Shabbat itself is the source of blessing, and we're going towards a great day, towards Pesach, and we're getting the blessing for Pesach during this Shabbat. Wishing you all Shabbat Shalom and Pesach Kasher V'Sameach.